Well, hello. It's so nice to see so many people here this evening with us. I'd like to call to order the City Commission business meeting for Monday, November 7th, 2022. And our first order of business is to call the roll. Clerk Borling.
Commissioner Decker.
Present.
Commissioner Hess.
Here.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Present.
Commissioner Juarez. Commissioner Pradel.
Present.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Present.
Mayor Anderson.
Here. Can I have a motion to excuse Commissioner Juarez from the business meeting this evening?
So moved.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Cooney. Is there support? Seeing no support, the motion dies. So once again, I want to thank everybody for being here in the chambers with us this evening for our regular business meeting, and also all who are watching us online. What is going to happen here to get our meeting set on the right note is we're going to have an invocation provided by Michelle Scheidt from the Fetzer Institute. And after she comes forward to provide those thoughts for us to get started, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. So please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
For inviting me to be here again this evening. As we prepare for our meeting, let us take a moment to open our hearts and to open our spirits and to ask for the wisdom that is most needed at this time. I invite us into a moment of silence. During this month of November, we call to mind several important spiritual and civic and cultural traditions as we remember our ancestors, honor our democratic responsibility to vote, honor our veterans, mark the Transgender Day of Remembrance, and pause to give thanks. It's a full month, and we lift up the memories of all who have gone before us, our loved ones, friends and relatives, public figures, our saints, and our ancestors. We recall the good examples that they set for us in being respectful and loving. We hold their loving memories, and we ask for the blessings of our ancestors as we continue the good work they began to create a more just and loving world for all. We also call to mind our gratitude in the month of November as we prepare to celebrate the season of Thanksgiving. We pause to offer thanks, our gratitudes, and appreciation as we remember our blessings and the many things for which we are thankful. We give thanks for our government, for our democracy, for our leaders. We offer gratitude for those who are working for racial justice in our society. We give thanks for our first responders, medical personnel, public servants, and all who are working for the common good of us all. We give thanks for our leaders who are trying to create a better world for everyone, and for our sacred responsibility of voting that we exercise tomorrow. We also pause to call to mind and to heart all who are affected by the difficulties facing our world, our nation, and our city. We remember those who are suffering from illness, trauma, loneliness, those who are suffering because of discrimination and gun violence. We remember that all of us are suffering from the evils of division and racism that plague our society. And we ask for the courage and the strength to work together for change. We ask that all may be safe, that all may be free from fear, and that all may know love. In this gathering tonight, we ask for guidance for our city and our leaders. We ask for kindness, that we may listen compassionately. We ask for wisdom, that we may make the best decisions for all. We ask for openness to to respect each person's ideas, even when we disagree. We ask for guidance to do what is right. As together we yearn for a community that is equitable, we ask for the strength to work for the good of all, especially as we seek to support people who identify as transgender, to bring an end to gun violence in our community, and to respect and care for the natural world around us. We ask for wisdom as we go to the polls tomorrow, and we honor those who have served our country. As together we work to build the beloved community, we hear and honor all voices. And so as we begin our important conversations tonight, let us remember the many needs of our community and our responsibility to respond with compassion and love. Thank you, and I extend my blessings and best wishes to each of you and the important work you are doing on behalf of us all.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It is always helpful to have somebody help us get started off on the right foot here, and I know Michelle just left, but I just want to say how important that is, and I appreciate that effort. First thing before we start the business part of the business meeting here is a proclamation, and the proclamation is for the Transgender Day of Remembrance, and I believe that Michael, are you here? Michael Klieg, is that right, Michael? Would, Vice Mayor, would you be willing to go down to the podium and take the proclamation? And I'll go ahead and read it. Thank you. Transgender Day of Remembrance, November 20th, 2022. Whereas out front Kalamazoo, formerly known as the Kalamazoo Gay Lesbian Resource Center, KGLRC, has served the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community of Southwest Michigan for the past 34 years. And whereas during that time, the LGBTQIA+ community has grown in the face of adversity to become a more safe, welcome, and visible part of the citizenry of the city of Kalamazoo. And whereas the people of Kalamazoo have actively supported their LGBTQIA+ neighbors through overwhelming passage of City Ordinance 1856 at the ballot box in 2009, and in so doing, approved a human rights ordinance to protect people from discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity in housing, employment, and public accommodations. And whereas Transgender Day of Remembrance has been a long-standing tradition in our local LGBTQIA+ communities, and on November 20th of each year, we come together as a community to honor the memory of those whose lives were lost in acts of anti-transgender bigotry and violence. And whereas in 2022, 32 transgender people lost their lives in those acts of bigotry and violence in America. And whereas transgender youth are 6 to 9 times more likely to attempt suicide compared to their peers and risk being physically and sexually assaulted every day. And whereas 1 in every 5 transgender adults will be evicted or refused housing due to their gender identity. And whereas Outfront Kalamazoo continues to provide transgender and gender nonconforming community members in need the access to resources necessary to help all people of our community be happy, healthy, and productive members of society. And whereas full equality for the LGBTQIA+ community is an ongoing work of the City of Kalamazoo, in partnership with local groups, is committed to continue efforts to end LGBTQIA+ homelessness, teen suicide, and bullying in our community. And whereas the City of Kalamazoo and Outfront Kalamazoo celebrates the diversity of all sexual orientations and gender identities, embraces the city values, and continues its dedication of being a welcoming city to all its citizens, and a community where everyone can love where they love, live, and play. Now, therefore, on behalf of the 54th City Commission, I, David F. Anderson, Mayor of the City of Kalamazoo, do hereby proclaim November 20th, 2022, to be Transgender Day of Remembrance in Kalamazoo, and encourage all citizens to support the efforts of Outfront Kalamazoo in strengthening our community and to honor and value all human lives.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody. Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and fellow commissioners, my name is Michael Cleggs, and I'm the Director of Programs for Outfront Kalamazoo. This is Regan Hanley, a longtime volunteer and board member. On behalf of Outfront Kalamazoo and the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer communities, I want to thank you for the proclamation you've presented to us today. This gesture helps bring to light the extreme violence towards transgender women and transgender men, specifically Black and Latinx transgender women. In the United States, this year, so far, 32 transgender people have been fatally shot or killed. In 2021, 50 transgender and gender nonconforming people were murdered. This was the highest recorded number since we began recording. These people, these victims, did not deserve to have their lives taken away from them. On November 20th at People's Church, we will host Transgender Day of Remembrance, a vigil to say their names and remember their stories. But we must do more than just mourn. We must work towards building resources to support the community when emergencies arise. This year, with the support of many people, including the City Commission, Outfront Kalamazoo was able to open an emergency home for LGBTQ people. Environments like this and further education is desperately needed if we want to see the number of deaths decrease in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Vice Mayor. And thank you for being with us here this evening. Appreciate that. So, Commissioners, you have before you the agenda for tonight's meeting. Are there any changes you'd like to see? All right, seeing none, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to an item that's on the consent agenda? That's anything under item G. If so, you need to ask for that item to move to the regular agenda. Are there any such requests? Seeing none, next is communications. Manager Ritzma.
Nothing this evening, Your Honor. Oh, I'm sorry. There is. That's what I thought. Excuse me. So tonight we have the honor of having Jen Hamas, the Vice President of Initiatives and Public Policy at the Kalamazoo Community Foundation, to give us an update on the long-term and community-led gun violence preventative strategy. Jen?
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for having me tonight. I'm looking forward to sharing the labor of our community for the last year and a few months. So thank you again for having me here. So again, I'm Jen Hamas. I'm the Vice President of Initiatives and Public Policy at the Kalamazoo Community Foundation. How did I get involved in this work? We house the Gun Violence Prevention Network, which is a network of community members who work with other community foundations across the United States to listen to what they are doing in their communities around gun violence. So we've been part of that for about a year and a half, and just feel very privileged to be invited to listen to people and hear their stories. As a community foundation, we're conveners and listeners. We bring people together. And let me just get right into this. It's hard to share the work of a year in 10 minutes, but I will try very hard. So, go here. I just really wanted to show today that this is a step in a journey. This is not a final product. A lot of gratitude to everyone involved. This is a long-term strategy that's rooted in a public health framework, and it's not solely focused on immediate gun violence intervention, although that is a part of this work. I'm going to share the goals that have been identified by the community and next steps for any community member to affirm and or identify anything that isn't already reflected, and to learn how to get more involved in this work. I also want to show that we are aligned as a community, and I'll talk more about that as I continue on here. So just bringing the resolution up from last September of 2021. I'm not going to read every quote that I pulled from here, but what I did want to highlight is the last one, which talks about a public health approach to gun violence prevention. And when we think about what that means, and let me actually just read this, because I think it's really important for the work that we've all done as a community over the last year. The Kalamazoo City Commission and City Administration will establish working relationships with other local municipalities, community members or community partners, and community members to establish an evidence-based public health response to address the underlying social, economic, and systemic factors that promote gun violence. And I think what you'll see is that has happened, and that's thanks to many people in this room and then many people here as well. I wanted to share a visual, and I wanted to just give thanks to Cradle Kalamazoo at the YWCA in Bronson, and also WMed for this visualization of what a public health framework for reducing health inequities looks like. So I am not a public health expert. I don't purport to be one, but I have wonderful public health experts to lean on. And this visualization helps me see what a public health approach looks like. I wanted to share that with all of you and the wider community. And think about how that current round of funding addresses those last two boxes. And what we're trying to do with the goals here are address the first three boxes, which are here: social inequities, institutional inequities, and then living conditions. So let me get further into that. Who did we hear from since September of 2021? If you attended any kind of listening session on this topic in Kalamazoo County over the last year and a few months, you are reflected here. Through government, youth groups, advocacy groups, direct service, law enforcement, and grassroots organizations. I know this is very small, but I just want to show a scale of the people that we have heard from over the last year. You might not even remember attending, and yet we understand how important it is for anyone who has contributed to this to know that you were heard and reflected here in the goals that have emerged. If you didn't provide feedback and want an opportunity to provide your voice because of your passions or lived experience, that opportunity will occur in the next few weeks, and I'll share that in a timeline at the end of the presentation. And just one note on the steering committee that has emerged from this work. It really was emergent. It came together organically over the last year, and it consists of community leaders from across sectors, individuals who are directly impacted, and law enforcement, and the invitation to attend steering committee meetings is open. There are foundational documents that we also consulted in order to just learn and try to put something together that reflects the long-term goals of the community. Those are the Blueprint for Peace out of Milwaukee. That was one of the first violence prevention long-term strategies of its kind. And we are working with Reggie Moore, who is from the Medical College of Wisconsin. He's the Director of Violence Prevention Policy and Engagement there. He is our tech support for this plan. So we have talked with him over the last year and a half as we've put together what these goals could be. I wanted to raise that is an evidence-based approach, that we are looking at how do you do that in Kalamazoo County? What does it look like? We're not just taking the Milwaukee blueprint and being like, boop, here it is for Kalamazoo. It's been a lot of work in looking at feedback and where that applies. I also wanted to give a shout out to the Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety for lifting up the Bleeding Out framework. It's strategies to reduce violence, and that's from the Council on Criminal Justice. Then we have our framework documents, which are, of course, if we're taking a public health approach, the social determinants of health, and then that public health framework for reducing health inequities. So let's look at the goals that have emerged here. These are the priorities that have been identified after reviewing all of the community feedback. I am one person, so this is not reflective of my ideas. I was able to work with several very supportive people to put this together. And this feedback has shown we're aligned on 6 goals. Again, long-term community-led strategy. And that is to stop the shooting, stop the violence, and that's where you'll see the intersection of intervention that I talked about. To heal, so increase access and build capacity for healing and restorative justice. Support children, youth, and families. Cultivate economic stability. Foster safe and strong neighborhoods. And then fortify by strengthening capacity and coordination. And collaboration. That's not in the goal title, but that is a goal of this. So over the next few weeks, our community will have one more opportunity to identify any other priorities they want to see on this journey. And then in early 2023, our community will have opportunities to identify and prioritize the activities that go along with each of these goals. So what I'm going to do, because I don't have a lot of time to dive into this, is just review each goal, and then I want to show you how aligned we are as a community with the strategies under each goal. And again, the activities have not been created yet. Those are with our community and with us to do together in early 2023. So the first goal is stop the shooting, stop the violence. What you'll see on this slide are dots. I was trying to think about how to show that many people said the same thing. And because I'm a visual learner and I was a teacher, this looked pretty good to me. It's a good way to illustrate that. So what I wanted to point out here is that I have been listening to people give feedback on this for the last 2 months, and there are several groups that are not represented yet, but this will be updated, so that will represent them. But what I will highlight here for the first goal is that, and I'll do this for each one, the one that is the highest priority right now, where we have the most alignment. And for stop the shooting, stop the violence, that is strategy 3, which is respond to individual and community needs post-incident. So everyone in almost every group agreed that that is a high priority. And then second was reducing violence with proactive prevention methods. What I'll put on the slides right after the goal are just some quotes from the feedback. There are hundreds of quotes, and I couldn't put them all here, but I just pulled a few highlights for folks to read. The second goal is to increase access and build capacity for healing and restorative justice. And you'll see our biggest alignment here was around strategy 1, which is promoting healing, behavioral health, and trauma reduction. The second priority, and you'll see that blue dot, is the city and county joint listening sessions from late last year in 2021. But you'll see that number 4, improving cultural competence and supporting cultural identities within the community, was the second priority with the strategies. And again, just a few quotes that I wanted to pull. I did want to give a shout out to the youth that we have talked to throughout this process. They've been very open, honest, And I say this many, many times, but youth are the future, and I think that their vision of some of the activities that could go along with the strategies are very important. The third goal is to support children, youth, and families, and you'll see that the top priority there is promoting healthy families and quality early learning for healthy youth development. The strategies 2 and 5 are kind of tied for the second priority, which is cultivating safe and inclusive school environments, and then providing high-quality academic and social opportunities, recognizing the needs of each child and youth. Just more quotes from across listening sessions from the last year, and you do have a copy of these slides so you can review them in more detail. I wish I could talk more about every experience over the last year, but I cannot do that. Goal 4 is cultivating economic stability, and you'll see that priorities or strategies 4 and 5 are the highest priority here, which is increasing economic development and access to economic opportunity in priority neighborhoods, then helping people earn steady incomes that allow them to meet their health needs. Just more quotes from our community feedback. Goal 5 is fostering safe and strong neighborhoods. There were 3 priorities that really rose as aligned as top strategies. The first one is creating building resident leadership and collective action, and then increasing access to safe, stable, and you'll see in the community feedback here that in the Bleeding Out work group, which was at Lewis Walker at the beginning of the year, the Ring cameras were brought up at that time, and those are now going out to community members. The 6th goal is to strengthen capacity and coordination. You can see our alignment across the strategies here. The first one being the most highest priority, which is building capacity for systems change and increased collaboration across organizations and sectors. And then strategies 4 and 5 are also a high priority for community members, which is developing and implementing an effective communication strategy, increasing evaluation capacity and accountability. This was the goal that had the most feedback from community, so you'll see 2 slides of feedback here. So before I end, and again, I could talk about this for a long time. If any of you have been in conversations with me about this, we talk for hours. But our tentative timeline for this work is that for the rest of this month, we're doing updates to city and county commissions at business meetings to share what's happened since the resolution was approved. There's continuous meetings with stakeholder groups across the community and an invitation to individual community members and groups to engage in the process via an online survey. So that survey will be, next week we're presenting the same information to the county commissioners, and then shortly after we'll be releasing one final survey. I know there's been listening sessions for the last year, but we wanted to give one more opportunity for folks to give feedback before we move into planning the activities that go along with the strategies. In December of 2022, we're going to review and compile information from this last community engagement, identify group facilitators and groups for these 6 goals, and schedule action planning sessions, and we'll get dates out to stakeholders who want to participate. In January, February, and March, we're doing facilitator training, and that group action planning begins. By March, we hope that the goal groups will complete the meetings and compile all those activities, and then we'll develop the final strategy draft that has any updated goal language, updated strategy language, and then any activities that have come out of those meetings. In April, we'll circulate the final strategy draft, and then in May, it'll be the final strategy. So I've talked to some people who have said, well, what happens when we have a strategy? Gun violence in our community is not going to be solved in a month or a year after having that. But what we will have is we will actually have a public health-minded strategy for gun violence prevention that has been touched by thousands of community members, which we have not had yet in this community. I wanted to end by just focusing on this idea of alignment. I've spoken to so many people over the last year, from directly impacted individuals who have shared their personal stories. I hold a ton of gratitude for them, to grassroots groups, to institutions, and everyone has a different idea about what's going to work. They have the idea of what's going to work. And although the ideas are different, we found that we can be aligned on the goals and strategies presented here, as you could see from the alignment and the feedback, and we need to stay in that space. If we keep working in silos or feeling like we are the only ones who can do something, our data around gun violence will continue to look the same year after year. So alone we can continue to do little, and together we can do a lot more. So thank you to everyone. Thank you very much. I think I have time for some questions, but I appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Jen Hamos. I appreciate you coming here and talking with us about this broad community effort. Any questions for Jen at this time? All right, keep doing the good work, and we look forward to hearing from you again and the work beginning in earnest. So thank you so much. Next is the opportunity for general public comments, and we'll start first with people that are here in the chambers this evening. You'll have 3 minutes. Please give us your name and whether you live in the city. You can sign in at the podium if you want to come up and make a comment. And after we're done here in the chambers with people who are present, we will take comments by phone. I'll provide the phone number right now. You can call in now if you would like, through the end of the public comment period. The number is 888-382-9556. Is there anyone in the chambers that would like to make a comment?
Good evening. My name is Ray Sweeney. I'm a member of First United Methodist Church and also a member of the Isaac Affordable Housing Task Force. And I wanted to bring to you several items on your agenda that I think are worth noting and add maybe a question or two at the end. First of all, we're so delighted that you're considering a pilot for the Lodge House. Lodge House provides housing for people that are at the very low end of the area median income. And I am gratified that I've been able to help 2 people into your Lodge House. And the impact on their lives can be incredible. One on SSI is not making enough to live in anything but a bare room with the amount of income they get in that particular program. The other one was flat out homeless and has been informing me not only of his life on the street over as long as I've known him, over 6 or 7 years, but also what his life is becoming there in Lodge House. So kudos and bravo. The other I wanted to bring to your attention, I appreciated so many of you being at the public meeting that Isaac had recently. And the Affordable Housing Task Force had several proposals, and thanks to Commissioner Pradel, who thought that maybe you were overstepping by having so many of you there at the meeting, explained why that was. But now you're duly constituted with minutes and all of that, so I wanted to give an opportunity, if you would, to consider what you were asked. Excuse me. Will you hold the city manager accountable for enforcing the Human Housing Equity Ordinance that was unanimously adopted in 2020? And as you search for a new city attorney, will you commit to hiring an attorney who will fully support the Housing Equity Ordinance? And if you do revise the text of the ordinance, will you make sure that it is strengthened and not watered down? So that was one. Several of you did speak on it, but if others felt restrained by the Open Meetings Act, this gives you an opportunity when you have your comments later on in the evening. And secondly, will you support well-planned temporary housing solutions designed to give dignity, privacy, and safety to people who need a place to live and to the neighborhoods surrounding them? Will you welcome the stranger? Will you say yes in my backyard and welcome in my backyard to well-planned temporary housing solutions. So those are what are on our mind. And just lastly, when you consider the urban bird treaty, there was a sense that it would go.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Olivia Shanker, and I am a youth in Kalamazoo. And I'm requesting that you guys take up the Urban Conservation Treaty for Migratory Birds. I grew up in an area surrounded by green space, and I have a love for nature and the environment. And so every morning I wake up and the sun is shining down and I can hear the birds outside my window, and I can't imagine a world without that. And it is truly necessary for my well-being and everyone's well-being, including the wildlife, that we conserve our area and our land, and that we uphold and be a part of the Urban Conservation Treaty for Migratory Birds. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
I'm Nehemiah Scudder legally. My friends call me Aish, which means fire in Hebrew. And I'm concerned that this emphasis on gun violence is not violence in general. Actually, the Second Amendment of the Constitution supports freedom of ability to carry a gun and shouldn't be disrupted locally. We might run into federal trouble if we try it, and I hope we do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Renaya Fans. I'm here on behalf of Our Day, which is a youth climate coalition. I'm a youth climate change leader, along with my other leaders here. And I'm here to speak on adopting a resolution supporting the designation of the Greater Kalamazoo area on Urban Bird Treaty area. And so I'm here requesting that the City of Kalamazoo would be a partner in applying for Urban Bird Treaty status for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Today I want to talk about my experience with the climate and dealing with birds and stuff. So I spent 16 years in the Edison neighborhood, which is a predominantly low-income neighborhood and predominantly black and brown. I've now moved to the Parchment area, and I've spent 1 year there, so I've seen the vast contrast in the landscape and all the different living conditions. As we know, the Edison is the most populated area in Kalamazoo right now, and it has tons of crowded housings, and so it's not really an open space for greenery at all compared to the Parchment area, where there's vast open spaces for parks and green and stuff like that. And so I want for us to open up this bird treaty status so that all communities, all demographics are able to experience the wonderful green life and what it brings to individuals, and how peaceful it can be, and how it can mend communities together, and also make our neighborhoods look nice. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, next, please.
Hello, my name is Maya Bresnaw, and I'm a youth climate activist in Kalamazoo County, and I'm also urging you to partner with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services to adopt the Urban Bird Treaty in Kalamazoo. Nature is nothing without its birds. Imagine for a moment taking a hike in the early spring. Neon buds cover the trees and colorful wildflowers blanket the ground. Perhaps it just rained and the smell of wet dirt fills the air. Can you picture it? Now imagine the scene, but completely silent. No birds chirping from the branches above, no flutters of wings as they flitter from treetop to treetop. Complete and utter silence. It seems unnatural, does it not? Birds are an essential part of our natural ecosystems. Because of their important place in the food chain, they are crucial to the health of our local food webs. They serve as prey to larger animals and keep our apex predator populations healthy. They distribute the seeds of native fruits and flowers, bolstering local plant populations, and they provide the perfect background noise for a spring hike. But arguably most important, they keep harmful insect and vermin populations in check. Due to anthropogenic climate change, our weather patterns are changing, and Michigan is becoming a warmer, wetter place, which is a magnet to vermin like ticks. In the summer of 2019, I was diagnosed with Lyme disease from a tick bite. I displayed the classic traits of Lyme, but my doctor refused to give me a Lyme diagnosis, and I had to fight for months to get that diagnosis and the test. And because of that, my condition actually progressed to a chronic condition, and I will probably be fighting this for the rest of my life. Birds are a natural predator of ticks and similar vermin that carry disease such as Lyme, so protecting them and their habitats is super important to keep tick populations in check and prevent other youth like myself from having to go through this horrible condition, and I would never wish that on anyone. So please adopt the Urban Bird Treaty so we can protect our birds. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, next, please.
Hello, I'm Elliot Spoelstra, and I'm a junior at KC, and I live in the West Main Hill neighborhood. I'm also here with my fellow Ardea Youth Climate Coalition leaders, and I'm here in support of the Treaty of Migratory Birds, and I would like to see more habitat and conservation of birds, in turn providing more green spaces for people and communities in Kalamazoo. As I said, I grew up in the West Main Hill neighborhood, which, if you know and are familiar with, has many, many parks and green space. I would play for hours at a time with my friends when I was younger, and I think it was a big part of shaping who I am today. And I remember from just all the nature and wildlife, I learned so much from it, like being at the Kalamazoo Nature Center. I also learned a lot about birds, and I would just sit and watch birds for hours in my backyard. I would name the cardinals and the blue jays and watch hummingbirds flutter around. And the abundance of wildlife and birds was necessary for me. That was something I did all the time, and I would hate to see that not be a thing that will be available for youth in the future. And I think that it's a great thing for our communities and our environment, because are very important to keeping our ecosystems in balance. And as climate change gets worse and worse, I think our bird populations will start to decrease, as they already are, and I'm very concerned about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Pam Jackson, and I'm here representing the Audubon Society of Kalamazoo Board of Trustees. And I want to thank the youth that are here tonight speaking on the Urban Bird Treaty. We urge the City of Kalamazoo to sign on as an Urban Bird Treaty partner. This collaborative effort will create a broad coalition of public and private entities in our community that will benefit birds, just as importantly, human residents. In recent years, the city has demonstrated its commitment to habitat conservation through the adoption of the Natural Features Overlay Maps. Additionally, aspects of the Urban Bird Tree Program are already being accomplished with the City of Kalamazoo's recently approved sustainability plan. The Audubon Society of Kalamazoo looks forward to collaborating with the City of Kalamazoo and other Urban Bird Treaty partners to make the greater community healthier for birds and humans. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. You know, every time I come here, I'm reminded that there's so much to be done in the city, and I really appreciate seeing the youth here today. I am here to invite you to the Kalamazoo, well, I'll just read the notice. Kalamazoo County honors its veterans. As you all know, I'm a veteran, and I always try to push any opportunity that we can to serve, or at least be aware of or be present when there's an activity for veterans. The 2022 Kalamazoo County Veterans Day ceremony this year, we have a guest speaker that's coming from Lansing, and it is Director Zanetta Adams. She is from the Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency. For me, it's a big deal. You know, she's a woman veteran, she's an intelligence officer, and she brings a lot to the table. Plus, as you well know, if you have any interaction with the Veteran Service Office, that's where a lot of their funding comes from. So it's extremely important to show support when we have, well, even if it's local speakers, but especially when we have someone that comes from someplace like Lansing and picks Kalamazoo to come speak. I think it's a big deal. I appreciate everything that you guys do, and Mayor, my understanding is the flags look great, and we appreciate what the Parks and Services have done to make sure that area is ready for our veterans. I have some copies here. I'll just leave them with the clerk, and you know, I appreciate all of you. I know how hard you work. I know tomorrow's election day. That brings about a whole new bunch of challenges. But you guys are great supporters, and you're all inclusive, you know, men, female, etc. And I look forward to seeing you there. We have some other opportunities coming down the road. The MVAA, Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency, is looking to do a food drive in Kalamazoo. I kind of challenged them, and be careful what you wish for. They have never come down and serviced any of the counties that I service, which is 8, and Kalamazoo is one of them. And they have agreed to come to Kalamazoo to do a food drive. So once we get that all together with your support, I hope to see you all there. So have a good evening, and I appreciate everything that you do. Take care.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate you coming down tonight. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Bill Reeves. I've talked with you guys about this issue previously, but one-on-one and in group sessions and in here. First of all, I'm glad to see so many young folks here doing what they're doing. It would have been great to actually be able to hear most of what they said. And this is something that I've brought up multiple times, that the hearing in this chamber for people that are hearing impaired is absolutely atrocious and continues to be. And if you're just not going to do anything about it, just tell me and I'll quit bugging you, because this is an absolute waste of time for people that can't make out what is being said. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hello, good evening. My name is Ashante Collins. I'm the Anti-Racism Task Force Lead at Isaac of Kalamazoo, and also the co-chair for the Campaign for Criminal Justice, known as CCJT as well. Tonight, we are a sleep away from Election Day, and I wanted to stress how important that we are voting for those who align with the vision that we as a community members want for ourselves. When it comes to transparency, equity, and accountability, we have to make sure that people we elect to seats of power are holding up their end of the platforms that they ran on and continue to express that they are for as they sit before us. Recently, Isaac had his biannual public meeting where we heard from various task forces such as housing, gun violence prevention task force, and the anti-racism task force. When it was time to show up and to be present in front of your community, I want to extend my thanks and my gratitude to those who not only showed up, but committed to ask from various groups. For the Anti-Racism Task Force, we asked you, our city commissioners, over the next year to better understand how to factor racial equity into policy making, to advance racial equity in your work as an elected official, and to help dismantle systemic racism. Do you commit to participate in the following elected officials trainings hosted by Isaac, and to later debrief this workshop with Isaac task force members? The training that was asked of you to participate in was Erases Internalized Racial Oppression for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color workshop, or Erases Internalized Racial Superiority for White People workshop. Our next ask was that when thinking about racial health disparities as compared to other neighborhoods in the city of Kalamazoo, in the next quarter, will you commit to support the hiring of a culturally competent public health consultant or officer to investigate and mitigate the effects of the long-term environmental pollution and water injustices that have physically impacted residents of the city, specifically on the north and the east side of Kalamazoo? Thank you to all who committed to these asks and to making this community better. If you were unable to commit on October 25th, we invite you to commit tonight in chambers. These are trainings we are taking ongoing at Isaac. We look forward to this collective and transformative work with our county, city, judicial, and state elected officials. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kathy Faison, and I also work with Isaac on the Housing Task Force. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to all that attended our 2022 Isaac public meeting on October 25th. I'd also like to say special thanks to everyone that committed publicly during our meeting. During that meeting, we had a couple of asks, and you've heard, but I'm gonna ask again. Will you hold the city manager accountable for enforcing the housing equity ordinance that was unanimously adopted in September 2020? And as you search for a new city attorney, will you commit to hiring an attorney who fully supports the housing equity ordinance? If you revise the text of the ordinance, will you make sure that it strengthens it and not water it down? The second ask was, will you support well-planned temporary housing designed to give dignity, privacy, and safety to people who need a place to live and to the neighborhoods nearby? Will you welcome a community of people who are transitioning to permanent housing and a new life? With these questions, I want to thank those that did answer yes and commit. And what I am doing again is asking that you answer these questions during your public comment or during your answers tonight. Because this work we continue to do, and we are asking that we are able to do this work together. Another thing that I also want to ask is, how can we move forward to when we're getting up here and we're making public comments, that we can get some interaction from the City Commission, that we are able to get some responses from you. We've seen this in Portage City Council, and it's beautiful for us to get up here and have interaction from the City Council. So that's what we're asking in the future. Can we see this? How can we move forward with this with the City Commission? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening to our mayor and our vice mayor, commissioners, and city staff. My name is Charlotte Davis, and I live in Kalamazoo, and I am the executive director of Isaac. Thank you to all who attended our 2022 public meeting and also our anniversary on October 25th. If you missed, no worries, it was recorded. For close to 20 years, elected officials have made a choice to participate or not in personal commitments, and to be clear, not deliberations. We will keep all posted, and that invitation remains open. It was so exciting to receive commitments from elected officials, state, county, city candidates, even judicial candidates. And thank you to all who are ready. We are on this difficult journey together. And if you're ready tonight, we welcome that. There were a few courageous and powerful gems that I just want to share that were spoken on October the 25th. The first one, I moved to the north side and my health took a downturn. I am absolutely committed to pushing the city government to make some creative choices to move on behalf and to not only rely on the state and federal government, and that was Commissioner Hoffman. The second one, I believe there are people getting sick and dying at a very early age, and our people deserve better. We need to ascertain what is the problem specifically, and then we need to marshal the resources that we have to give our people the decent environment they deserve. That was Vice Mayor Cooney. The third, I would suggest that after this, that every unit of government take it upon themselves to take the leadership on this, and that this is anti-racism. And the fourth person, I say yes, and to all the people who are saying that we are tired of hearing about racism, imagine how tired we are of experiencing it. The struggle is real. As Dr. King said, the beloved community is not devoid of conflict, but it is free of violence. And then finally here, city commissioners, questions for you. Can you confirm that this situation with our chief is being handled with consistency with how it's been previously handled in similar situations? Are you ensuring that the past process and current investigation were and are centered in anti-racism and inequity? And then to Manager Ritzma, are you able to report as to when the investigation will conclude and share that with the community, honoring, of course, confidentiality and lifting transparency? We hope to hear your responses later on tonight. Thank you and have a blessed evening.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Beckett Jones, candidate for 8th District Court Judge here in Kalamazoo County. I live in Portage, Michigan. I've been in front of this commission on numerous occasions over the course of the last year. I think everybody's heard me, many in the audience as well, about kind of the stances that I have and the views that I have in terms of how to move forward with the judiciary. So instead of rehashing all of that, I wanted to give this body, the people in this room, a thank you. For the reception that I've gotten over the last year. And irrespective of how you wish to vote and how you plan to vote tomorrow, I just hope that you do vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. This is Wendy Fields, president of the Kalamazoo branch of the NAACP. Actually, I'm quite tired. I've been out canvassing all day, and I did not come prepared with anything to say, but wanted you to see my face, to know that I'm here. I'm not going away. I've been before you to make comments about various things, racism being one. The other thing is, and I just say shout out to Sister Charlay, who echoes exactly what I probably would say if I had written things out. But with that, I ask the same question. I get calls weekly from your black constituents wanting to know what's the status of Chief's situation. Can't lie, as a black person in this black community, having lived in Kalamazoo all my life, can't say that I trust you. I like you. I know a lot of you personally, but if you think I'm going to stand here and say that I trust everything that you do, I don't, because I don't think all decisions are personal. I think that you act out of fear and policies and procedures and practices that have been put in place for decades, but we are tired. It's been almost 4 months. And we've not heard a thing about Chief. So with him being the first black chief, yet he was also suspended, we don't have any records of that. I asked for that information, have not gotten anything. I submitted FOIA, nothing. It's interesting to me that the News 3 got what they asked for. I've not seen or heard anything. We deserve an answer. We deserve an answer. City manager has a job to do, but so do you. If he's not doing his job, then there's accountability. That's just the way it works. Friendship and whatever else aside, it is what it is. You all know what I went through with the NAACP. I didn't back down because of my predecessor. I stood with what's for right. You have to do the same thing. It's accountability. It's what we expect. It's what we want to see. And, you know, when I worked, I had a plaque on my desk, and it simply said, I seek peace, I prepare for war. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please. Anyone else in the chambers that wants to speak this evening? Okay, see no one else. We are going to go for people who have called in. Once again, I'm going to provide the number. It is 888-382-9556. And Kristen from our IT department here is helping us with call-ins for public comment. Do we have any?
Thank you, Mayor. Let me check here. Good evening, caller. Thanks for calling. You have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Hi. My name is Tina. I live in Kalamazoo. I am from Kalamazoo. I live in Southtown neighborhood in Kalamazoo. I am calling to ask several questions. Even though I never get an answer from any of you, never. I just get ignored. Here is question 1. When are you going to try to fix the failing infrastructures in Southtown neighborhood? For the whole neighborhood is underwater every time we flood. Your storm drains in the streets flood the neighborhood and then back up the failing storm sewers that flood the streets in our homes. Question 2. When are you going to accept Southtown neighborhood's concerns about being the neighborhood you named us in February of 2015? Edison wants to destroy our last green space, a known floodplain, to build, just like you have been wanting to since 2017. We are not Edison, we are Southtown, and we have issues in our neighborhood that need to get fixed. No homeowner, business, or resident should have to be trapped in their home for days in their neighborhood. Can't get in, can't get out, trapped by floodwater and sewage from failing infrastructure issues. And I am not talking about water lines. None of you will want this to happen around your homes. Think about it. Neither do we. The police station, the hospital, the residents are all trapped for days. Question 3. Look at what you did to us when you took away 12 acres of green space on Lake in Crosstown to build KVCC growing field. You built the land up higher. Because of that, we flood all the time now, more than ever. Are you just that greedy in Kalamazoo for land to destroy? Or is it just you don't care about your homeowners? Is it just that it's not my home, it's not my problem or my concern? It's time to start caring about the people who live in Kalamazoo, poor neighborhoods. Number 4, what are you up to with our last remaining green space in our neighborhood, Lake to Stockbridge? It is 5 acres of natural green space, 60% wetlands, and 40% is on a floodplain. I know it's almost December, and that is the time we get your letters saying you are trying to destroy our last green space, Lake to Stockbridge. This green space saves the whole block, John to Lake, to Upjohn Park, from being underwater. Why do you?
Hello, caller. Thanks for calling. You have 3 minutes.
Hello.
Hi there.
Yes,
Go ahead.
hi, my name is Kay. I'm calling because I had my appeal yesterday, on Tuesday, November 1st, and I wanted to make all of the city commissioner aware, if you haven't already watched that, to go watch that appeal with the Citizens Review and Appeal Board against the 2 officers who assaulted me and all the discrimination that I experienced on October 7th. It's really blatant that the white supremacy, that racism is rampant in KDPS, and that nobody is holding leadership like Jim Ritzema and Inspector Chuck Mason accountable for racism, and neither are any of the police officers in KDPS. The community is not safe. There's activists still facing charges from October. Kalamazoo is a mess. I am sitting here just listening to all the calls, listening to all the concerns of citizens. But at the end of the day, it is the people who are invested in the city. It is the landlords. It is all the greedy people who have their hands and their money invested in putting up a front of Kalamazoo that does not exist. There's homelessness issues. There's a school to prison pipeline issue. Kalamazoo support professionals are not making livable wages. It's a mess. Environmental racism. When are these things going to start being addressed fundamentally? Fundamentally being addressed. Police violence, activists facing charges again. I recommend that you all listen to the people from Isaac and really take this anti-racism training seriously, especially if you're a white male, a straight white male, in this time when, you know, the LGBTQ community is suffering and Black people, Indigenous people are getting assaulted by police. I really recommend you all to really address this violence through addressing your own biases, because it is very apparent that you are on the side of white supremacy and the white supremacists who pay their bills around in this city, who balance the budget, and who create foundations like the Foundation for Excellence. Thank you.
Hello, caller. Thank you for calling. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, hello, this is Joe Byers, a city resident. I'm calling in to support the resolution for the migratory birds. I'm a climate activist, and I just hope this isn't going to be another meaningless gesture. This summer I spent a lot of time in the Crosstown Ponds Park that's my neighborhood, and to my absolute horror, it was completely ripped out this summer, not just mowed down, like plants taken out. Tom and his late wife, Nancy Small, planted that beautiful bird and pollinator gardens down there by the Crosstown Park, or ponds. And the neighbor, they down and digging up their hard work to make the city a welcoming place for all living things. And one more thing I would like to at least address with all the recent articles that have come out about graphic packaging and the absolute disaster racism that is happening over there, environmental racism. It's just, I don't even know what to say. It's like talking to a brick wall. I really hope you're listening to everybody's comments tonight, because I can hear the frustration from home.
There are no further calls at this time.
Thank you very much, Kristen. And I want to thank everyone that made the effort and took the time to provide public input for our business meeting this evening. So next on the agenda is our consent agenda. Manager Ritzma.
Tonight we have 8 items on the consent agenda. First is the approval of a supplemental change order to contract with SWT Excavating Incorporated for the Hotop Water Main Replacement Project in the amount of $131,199.22. Next is the approval of a 3-year contract with Mission North for downtown parking and mobility services in the amount of $184,434. Next is the approval of a contract supplemental with Kalamazoo Oil, Inc. for gasoline and diesel fuel in the amount of $150,563.02. Next is the adoption of a resolution approving a payment in lieu of taxes for 1211 South Westnedge Avenue, Lodge House LLC, a Michigan limited liability company that was formed for the sole purpose of owning the property at 1211 South Westnedge Avenue, Kalamazoo, Michigan 49008, and whose sole member is the Lift Foundation. For 1211 Southwest Nidge Avenue, pursuant to Section 35-4 of the Kalamazoo City Code. Next is the approval of a request from the Downtown Development Authority to approve a parking agreement with MA Kazoo Theater LLC for discounted parking rates at the Kalamazoo Mall ramp and the Epic Center ramp. Next is the approval of an agreement with the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation for a grant in the amount of $34,700 for the Reeds Court floodplain and stormwater improvement planning project. And finally, approval of the amendments to the Foundation for Excellence bylaws and articles of incorporation.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Commissioners, the requested action is a motion to approve items 1 through 7 and authorize the city manager to sign all related documents on behalf of the city. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Hess,
Support.
supported by Commissioner Decker. Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes, however, I am abstaining on item G4 related to Lodge House. I am a member of the Lift Foundation Board. I receive no compensation for being on the board. It's a volunteer action, but I'm abstaining because of my involvement.
And Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The items on the consent agenda are approved. Next is our regular agenda, item H1, City Manager Ritzma.
Approval of the creation of an allocation in the Foundation for Excellence Board of Directors appointment of Steve Brown to the position of Executive Director of the Foundation for Excellence.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Is there a staff report on this item?
Nope, but the city attorney is available for any questions.
Okay, any questions for the city attorney, Commissioners? All right, seeing none. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to comment on this item? It's item H1. If so, please come to the podium. Seeing no one, the recommended action is a motion to approve the position allocation in the Foundation for Excellence Board of Directors appointment of Steve Brown to the position of Executive Director of the Foundation for Excellence.
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Hoffman.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Pradel. Discussion, Commissioners? Commissioner Pradel.
Sure. Just going to mention in terms of Brown, who I see is in the back of the room, has basically been with the Foundation for Dump. In all my interactions is just led with tremendous amount of professionalism, collaborative spirit, creativity, so I just wanted to take this opportunity to make sure to know he's deeply appreciated for all the work that he's done to advance and figure out this really municipal experiment, if you will, that could potentially be a model for the rest of the country. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. Next, reports and legislation. Manager Ritzma.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I know there's been some questions this evening about the chief and the investigation that's been going. I am not able to discuss the matter in detail because it's a personnel matter and that has to play out. I just want to let the commission know that I'm taking this very seriously. I am frustrated with how long this has taken. It's a complex investigation, and I just commit that I will have a report out of this to you in the near future, and time is of the essence. I understand that. Thank you.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Next on the agenda is an item of new business. City Manager Ritzma.
Adoption of a resolution supporting the designation of the Greater Kalamazoo County area as an urban bird treaty area.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Is there a staff report on this item?
Yes, I'd like to call forward Jamie McCarthy, our Community Planning, Economic Development, Sustainable Development Coordinator. Jamie?
Welcome, Jamie.
Thank you, City Manager Ritzma, and hello, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners, and thank you for this time this evening. Before you this evening, I'm happy to bring a staff recommendation to adopt a resolution in support of a countywide initiative led by the Kalamazoo Audubon Society and the Nature Center. With the support of many local municipalities and nonprofits, this partnership is applying to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in hopes of getting all of Kalamazoo County designated as an urban bird treaty area. So what this special federal designation means is that the partners in this region are actively working to protect birds, and really more so looking to protect or working to protect really important critical bird habitat. That habitat is under threat throughout North America, but especially in our region as well, from things like development pressure, air pollution, and climate change. The federal program was brought about because of some unprecedented losses in bird populations that we're experiencing throughout the globe and in North America. In 2019, there was a groundbreaking study that came out that talked about and measured for the first time a loss of over 3 billion birds in North America since 1970. Most recently this year, a new study came out showing that 90 U.S. bird species have rapidly lost more than half of their population. So we're seeing declines at really unprecedented rates. So how can the city lend its support to this broader initiative? We're really excited to see this partnership come forward, focused on Kalamazoo County, but certainly including the city of Kalamazoo, from some great organizations that are, really volunteering their time to step up and manage and oversee this big application that'll go into the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. But really, it's all of the actions, this collaborative effort by many municipalities to continue doing our work in a way that will protect habitat in the future. So in Kalamazoo specifically, we have several ongoing initiatives that really help support this application. These examples include things that the city's already committed to doing. So these are things that are, budgeted, they're in plans, they're projects that the city is looking forward to working on in the next several years. And they're generally nature positive. They will have a lot of ancillary benefits to protecting that bird habitat that's really critical here locally. This includes things like, and I think some of the speakers tonight really helped elevate some of these projects that the city's doing, but things like the Natural Features Protection Ordinance, which really helps protect woodlands and water quality, things that are important to birds and people. The city's tree ordinance and all of the annual street tree planting efforts that are ongoing at the city. Many of our Tree City USA designation goals really align with this as well. And several things in the city's community sustainability plan really hit on all sorts of environmental benefits, including birds, everything from improving our urban design through our codes and ordinances, to protecting clean air and clean water and mitigating climate change. So as a part of this resolution, what the city and staff are committing to specifically will be tracking and reporting those bird-positive outcomes that are going to be happening from some of our ongoing initiatives and projects. We will help to promote public education to residents and businesses and development and how they can be more bird-friendly, and also supporting the partnership to celebrate things each year like the World Migratory Bird Day, which is required as part of the designation. Overall, this special designation will benefit Kalamazoo and Kalamazoo County in a couple of different ways. We certainly get this partnership that's very focused on bird-related issues and solutions. This designation also gives Kalamazoo area a preferential status in some grant funding that's available through the federal government, and then certainly we're getting better, healthier environmental outcomes for people and wildlife. And I wanted to just pass along a couple of bird facts for Kalamazoo. I think there's so many great things about Kalamazoo, and we don't give enough attention to what an important migratory area that we have here in our region, and we're really a core part of that. So the peregrine falcons that many folks watch, they're nesting each year just a couple of blocks from here. Those falcons are one of 15 species that are listed in Michigan as endangered, threatened, or special concern, and they're found here in Kalamazoo, and they're nesting and having offspring here in Kalamazoo. So it's really a great thing that we have here. Also, Kleinstadt Preserve, which I know many of you many of the residents here in Kalamazoo really value. It's also a great spot for birds. It has some of the highest counts of birds. There's over 209 species that have been identified there. So again, happy to have this resolution forward to you tonight. I think it's outstanding that we can partner with groups like the Nature Center and the Audubon Society who are willing to step up and really take action and allow the city to be a partner that can, help support our shared goals together. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions from Commission for Jamie McCarthy? Seeing none? Oh, Commissioner Hess.
Thank you. Hi, Jamie. I know that you have with you Gail Walter, who is the author of this and who has been really working on this for a long time. I do know that for her, it's been a labor of love. It's been very important to her life. She has written the entire application, so I'd like to give her my gratitude for doing that and for bringing this forward to Kalamazoo, and for it taking so long for Kalamazoo to respond. But yes, this is something wonderful in Kalamazoo. And I've heard her say before at Environmental Concerns Committee, what's good for birds is good for people. We've heard from people here tonight that are concerned about our environment, our environmental racism, and maybe we could look to the birds for that, because if there's no birds, soon there will be no people. Could you speak a little bit, Jamie, to how this adoption of the Urban Bird Treaty would be able to move us forward with environmental justice in Kalamazoo?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the activities that are part of an application like this that are helping to protect birds and bird habitat, as you mentioned, are going to be giving us healthy outcomes for people as well. And so one of those activities is limiting or reducing the use of pesticides, and that's one of those toxins that gets introduced into the environment, and in fact, it will impact both people and birds. And so by putting that forward as one of those actions that the partners could take, we'll see those positive outcomes for all folks here in Kalamazoo.
And to be clear, we were asked originally to be a core partner, which is more capacity than the city can take on. Can you speak a little bit to that, and that we are signing on to the application, and that we will be participating in as many ways as possible?
Yeah, so staff took a look at the application process and some of the commitments, and we also took a look at and talked with different departments on what sort of staffing we have, what are some of the priorities for those staff, and then we also leaned in on our sustainability plan. This certainly aligns very well with our sustainability plan, making sure that we have an urban environment that is aligned with and works with wildlife is one of the actions in the plan. However, we definitely, through that plan, we looked at 83 actions, and we were able to kind of filter through and decide, what role could the city play? Is it really tied to our core services? Is it tied to our ordinances? And then we're going to need to take that really lead role. This one falls somewhere in between. It's sort of mid-priority. The plan says we'll act as a connector and a supporter in that role. And so we feel like we have the staff capacity to do that really well, but to commit as one of those core partners responsible for fulfilling the implementation plan, that is something we probably don't have the staff or the expertise for right now. I think staff that we have moving forward to implement sustainability actions are going to be really focused in some other priority areas, a lot of carbon mitigation and those sorts of activities centered around energy and renewable energy. And so I think that we're certainly open to reevaluating in a couple of years, maybe as we get some of those big priorities underway, that maybe something like wildlife would be something we'd be able to lead in. But right now we feel very comfortable that we can be a strong supporter in this way, and we'll work with these great partners that have brought this forward.
Appreciate that from you, Jamie. And Gail, thank you for your work on this and for bringing it forward to us. I really appreciate your work. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie and Commissioner Hess. Any other questions? Oh, Commissioner Pradle.
Hey, Jamie, thank you for being here tonight. Just a question for you. So the treaties started primarily the first two big cities were New Orleans and I think Chicago, if I'm not mistaken. And if I recall correctly, I think there were something like 28 other cities that have adopted such. So would we, be effectively like in the low 30s in terms of communities that have come together to do this? Do you know if that number has grown much more? I'm just curious how many communities have done this nationwide.
I'm looking to our partner, Gail, who's, I know, very connected to this initiative at the federal level, and wondering if she maybe can step up and answer that question for you.
Sure, thank you, Jamie. And I guess kind of a second part to that as well is, like in terms of interjurisdictional collaboration and municipal collaboration like we have with this local case, is that very common, nationwide when you see others do the same?
Yes, I'll answer that question first. It is, it is essential, that is part of the goal of the Urban Bird Treaty, is to be able to foster collaboration between different entities, different municipalities within the geographic area. So it's defined, you can define an Urban Bird Treaty city wherever you draw the map, whatever municipalities you have that are engaged in your particular entity. Detroit, as a matter of fact, is an Urban Bird Treaty city, as is Lansing. Detroit covers 7 counties, so they have many different partners, and part of the goal is to foster collaboration between all these different partners. And, we see that already happening with a number of the partners that we have. We have the city of Portage works with the DNR to create a new trail that goes into Gordon Neck State Game Area. Ashtimo Township is creating a new non-motorized, universally accessible trail, and they're working with the Kalamazoo Nature Center, Audubon Society of Kalamazoo, and hopefully the Disability Network to make it universally a universal trail. And so, yes, I believe we would be in the low 30s for the number of cities that have actually achieved this designation.
Oh, thank you.
So, and if I can, the question that came up that Commissioner Hess asked about kind of the relationship between the Urban Bird Treaty and environmental justice, I believe was the question. And birds actually act as an environmental justice multiplier because, and you certainly are all aware about some of the air quality issues that we have in certain parts of town, water quality issues, and you realize humans are not the only ones that are breathing that air. And so, what is good for birds is good for people. So if you can create and invest in the ecosystem habitats that people need, so clean air, clean water, homes that are free of toxins and poisons, a safe place to live and to recreate, those are things that people need, and they're also things that all the inhabitants need. And you think of the impacts that we've heard about, the health effects in people on the north side. We don't understand what health effects there are on non-human residents there, but undoubtedly there are some. So, thank you. Any other
Thanks, Gail.
questions?
Thanks again, Gail. So no more questions. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to comment on this item? It's item L1. If so, please come to the podium. Give us your name and whether you live in the city. Each speaker will have 3 minutes for their comments. Seeing none, at this time, the recommended action is a motion to adopt the resolution. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Hess.
Second.
Supported by Commissioner Hoffman. Discussion, Commissioners. Seeing none, Clerk Borland, please call the roll.
Commissioner Praedel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The resolution is adopted. We're now at the point on our agenda. We're here from Commissioner comments. Is there anyone who'd like to start off this evening? Okay, thank you, Commissioner Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say to the youth voices that were here in the room, I'm so glad that you are rising up right now. It was wonderful, and I got educated, so you're never too old to learn something new. So I just wanted to put that out there. I wanted to share with the community that I had a meeting yesterday with a group of Northside residents who are concerned about the amount of liquor license that are being given out to stores on the north side. As Jen Haymoss was sharing her report out, I was reminded that, we have a responsibility to ensure that our core neighborhoods are not infiltrated with things that draw crime to those areas, such as gun violence and domestic violence. And so I'm hoping that we as a commission and a community will step up and see if we can get some of these liquor stores, because we have more than enough. And they're owned by people who don't live in our community or in this city. And so I really implore that we do something bold and we come together to ensure that we are mitigating those types of behaviors in businesses who are preying on low-income, no-income communities in a way that they take those dollars out and all they see is the bad and they never get to see the good in our residents. So kudos. I'm hoping there's a way that we can marry this movement of getting some of the liquor stores, the licenses revoked or moved with gun violence, because there is a direct correlation to that. And so I want to thank the group that I met with yesterday. It was wonderful to hear and to see that they are banding together. There were people like Pastor Armstrong and his wife from Stone's Church, Jazzy Franklin, Ms. Chantel, so Commissioner Tammy Ray. So there is there's widespread support for this, and petitions are going out to residents. So I just hope that the entire community will sign one of those petitions, because we can do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hoffman. Commissioner Praedel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, everyone, for being here to speak tonight. And thank you to Isaac and the folks from Isaac for affording an opportunity to speak in a public meeting as well. Just want to start off first with a note. I'm not sure if anyone is aware of this, but our very own City of Kalamazoo, Anthony Ladd, he was chosen as one of 50 delegates from across the country in a group. They all had to be under 40 years old, who are leading the way in terms of like their work in local municipal government. They all converged over the course of several days in Omaha, Nebraska, to break down silos and to figure out like some creative strategies that can be kind of like a blueprint for America in the next decades to come. How cool is that? So Anthony Ladd was one of only 50 people from around the country who got to represent us, the city of Kalamazoo, with a group of the best and brightest in Omaha, Nebraska. So hats off to Anthony. Thank you for representing us. That was so cool to read and see that. And when you look at the list of people that attended that, I mean, there were some heavy hitters, and it's impressive that they're doing that work. Secondly, I just wanted to take a pause. I'm going to try my best to do this anytime there's an election. Just to make sure that Clerk Borling, that you and your team know that you have my unequivocal faith and support, that you are the right people for this job, and that you have the best heart and the best conscience to do the work of the people to make sure that tomorrow that there are fair and accessible elections for every person who wishes to do so in the city of Kalamazoo. I think it's so incredibly important to recognize that not only is it an admirable thing that hundreds of people who are going to show up in our community tomorrow to help make sure every person can cast their ballot, to count ballots, but people recognize that these are our neighbors, the people we go to church with, the people that we go through the grocery store and check out with. These are everyday people who we see and experience every single day, and you are doing the most noble of noble work because you're doing it under the most intense scrutiny and pressure that we've never seen as a country, and you're continuing to do it with a tremendous amount of integrity and focus. So I just wanted to make sure that I said that and that you know that. We appreciate you. Encourage people to go to michigan.gov/vote to see if their absentee ballot was received. Also, voter information about where to vote tomorrow as well. There's a great website called vote411.org where you can just type in your address and it pulls up your exact ballot for tomorrow. If you allow me a chance, I want to make sure I take an opportunity to respond to Isaac and just give everybody a little bit of background about what some of the commenters were speaking to tonight. There's a public meeting for Isaac on October 25th. Isaac's an organization I respect tremendously. I've gone to the same church since as a member since I was 12 years old. They've been active members. My children's godparents and have been active members in Isaac, and I have a tremendous amount of respect to them and know always that their heart is absolutely in the right place, and appreciate the constant engagement as well. At the meeting on October 25th, there were some very distinctive policy questions where we were asked to give, yes, do we support, and if not, just asked to stay muted and not respond. And, one of the things that's an awesome thing for the city of Kalamazoo is that we as a jurisdiction, we were showing up. We had 6 out of 7 people there for Isaac to support Isaac. One of the challenges that comes with that when you have a public body is that quorum represents 4 of us. So if 4 of us show up in a meeting and share and express views, that's a violation of the Open Meetings Act. And I'm not just making this stuff up. It's page 8. Here's the Attorney General's guide on the Open Meetings Act. And I'm going to read you the exact line. It says, "May a quorum of board gather outside an open meeting without violating the Open Meetings Act." It says, it's talking about conferences. And so conferences are just kind of like if we're all showing up to learn about something, or we just showing up for informational purposes where we're not dialoguing or discussing issues. It says, these kind of meetings involve a conference designed primarily to provide training or background information and involve a relatively broad focus upon issues of general concern, rather than a more limited focus on matters or issues of particular interest to a single public body. So this is the line that I want to read, that I'm extracting directly out of the Open Meetings Guide that was developed by a Democrat-elected Attorney General in the state of Michigan. It says, however, when gatherings are designed to receive input from officers or employees of the public body, the OMA requires that the gathering be held in a public meeting. A public meeting requires us to give advance notice, to allow for public comment from the entire community, and requires us to record minutes, of which we could not achieve all those things in that meeting. It is important to me in the national environment that we live in that you, as residents of this community and people who show up to these meetings, know and trust that even when it's the hard thing, even when it's showing up to 400 people that I respect tremendously and know it's not going to make me look like the most popular person in the world, that I will absolutely wholeheartedly do the right thing. And even if that means that it pushes it to a point where people think that's because I'm trying to be deceptive or I can't be trusted and choose not to elect me, I will go that far to do the right thing. Because if we lose the trust and faith of this community to follow the law, then we just end up like we've had this mess the last couple of years of the national scene, where people don't follow the laws and can do whatever they want to do. Do I necessarily think that the laws are always the perfect prescription or make it the easiest to do things that can move society forward? Not always, but that is the law, and I will follow it. So to answer some of the questions, so it asked, will you hold the city manager accountable for enforcing the housing equity ordinance that was unanimously adopted in September 2020? So the city charter makes this very clear with us, so the answer is yes. And the reason it's yes is because section 43A of the city charter says that the city manager is to see that all laws and ordinances are enforced. So second question is, as you search for a new city attorney, will you commit to hiring an attorney who fully supports the housing equity ordinance? And if you so revise the text of the ordinance, will you make sure to strengthen it and not water it down? So I'll share this. I'm on the city attorney subcommittee. I asked to be a part of that. The mayor can attest to this because I feel so strongly that this role is incredibly important to our city and the work that we do. Both Commissioner Decker and the mayor can attest to this also. I pushed in those subcommittee meetings that I thought it was incredibly important that we involve community and that I involve the full commission, the opportunity to make sure that we put and list exactly what we want out of the next city attorney. So, and I even had people reaching out, even other elected officials reach out to me and say, why are you wasting your time doing that? It's your appointee. Don't waste the time collecting input from the community. You guys know what you need. We did it anyways. So am I looking for somebody that is supportive of our ordinances? Absolutely. The part that I struggle with, and this is why I struggle with the rule at the Isaac meeting where it was yes or just stay muted, is because it says, and if you revise the text of the ordinance, will you make sure to strengthen it, not water it down? I'm in the housing industry, and I will do anything it takes to strengthen housing in this community. But I also, asking me, does it water it down or dilute it, is kind of I don't know, I feel like that could be up to opinion. One person might say that you made it and you really added some teeth to it, and the next person might say that you didn't add some teeth to it. So I feel like I can't say a definitive yes to that, because what happens if one person feels that we didn't go far enough, another person does, but I will absolutely commit to advancing whatever we do to advance housing in our community. Thank you, everybody, for your patience on this. The other one is the racial health disparities. Will you commit to hiring a culturally competent public health consultant or officer to investigate and mitigate the effects of long-term environmental pollution and water injustices on the north and east side? Again, generally speaking, do I support of making whatever we can do to support this community and making sure that people live in a safe and prosperous place? Absolutely. The tricky part for me is that the question asks me, will you find somebody who's culturally competent to investigate and mitigate? The tricky part for that is that there are many environmental circumstances that go beyond many complexities, and to find somebody, basically saying like you will find somebody who can investigate it and resolve the issue, I feel like I would be lying if I said yes to that, because I feel like that's asking to find a unicorn to do something that's a very complicated thing. And so I guess what I'm saying is that let's figure out how to move that forward in a way that is possible, and then making sure that people recognize too that we have a county that has a health department. We have multiple other jurisdictions that we can be working with, and other agencies that are investigating this work that we should be working and partnering with to make sure that we have accurate, well-investigated, well-researched information, and be a partner at that table to do that work. There were also some questions that were asked about attending trainings. All day, every day, I am willing to learn and grow and be a person in progress. That question I did answer because it wasn't policy related. It is something that I commit my children to, that I commit my family to, I commit my work to, I'll commit here as a public official. If there's something that I can show up for, I will show up if asked. So with that, I wish everybody a great night. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel, very much. Commissioner Decker?
Thank you, Mayor. First, I wanted to start off by saying thank you to Jen from the Kalamazoo Community Foundation and the presentation on our community-led gun violence strategy. I did notice that many of the points in there are also aspects within the IK 2025, so I kind of see the correlation of what, again, the community is asking for and kind of how that goes along with IK 2025 when it talks about safe communities and youth development. I also look forward to seeing that plan in May, so very excited about that. I also wanted to thank all of the individuals of ISAC that have come up and spoken with us today. I will say that I was also at that meeting on the 25th. It was a great meeting, my first time ever attending, and it was inspirational. A lot of emotions and a lot of feelings within that. Some of the things that I did talk about at that meeting was, again, I will be personally taking the ERASE training. I had already signed up for that, so I'm looking forward to how that's going to further my knowledge. Also, again, committing to, as we are all doing now, creating policy to work with the city and the county and the community and ISAC to always have an impact on crises in the city of Kalamazoo. To vote, that was when I will be exercising my right to vote tomorrow. Again, I'm committed to the continued work with the city leadership, staff, community, and ISAC to continue to move forward positive change for community residents impacted by disparities within our city. And again, with ISAC, I also look forward to reviewing the changes to the Civil Rights Board ordinance. I also went to a conference last week. It was called Housing North, and I kind of wanted to bring some recognition also to what I learned there. Housing North was in Traverse City, and it talked all about affordable housing. And one thing that I will say is that I met with a young lady there, Melissa, from the Michigan Municipal League, and they actually gave a shout out to the city of Kalamazoo because there was a presentation. They were talking about city ordinances. And when I think about what we went through in changing our city ordinances and the questions that we had and listening to all of these other communities that were there and seeing how far along the city of Kalamazoo is, that made me feel good. Because they called us out and they said they only named 2 cities that were doing the things that we were doing when it comes to affordable housing. And that was Detroit and the city of Kalamazoo. And I know Director Kick, or Assistant City Manager Kick, when we had a retreat beginning of this year, she had brought up blueprints that kind of talked about the different kinds of non-traditional housing that we have. And I think, that's enhancing a structure that supports non-traditional ways of progress, is the way I see it. When you talk about the different ways of housing, if we need 7,000 units, and if we here at the city say we want to create 2,500 to 3,000 units of housing, the plans that they have and what Assistant City Manager Kick's team did before she came over, that is what they're seeing in the future. I also wanted to give a little shout out to the Lodge House, again, which again has the 60 units. And I want to bring that up because we did have a resident comment, Mr. Sweeney, expressing thanks for the Lodge House and regarding the 2 individuals that he has spoken with and has known and how he's able to see, one of their lives change for the better. And that really, in my eyes, is going to catalyze a positive change here in the city of Kalamazoo. City Manager Ritzma, I also want to say I appreciate you speaking up and trying to get us some answers for our chief. I know it is a very long process, and I know it is a very touchy process, but I do think, that you looking into that and finding out what kind of answers you can find for us, we need that as a commission, and I think the community is asking for that. So anything that you can do to expedite that, we don't want to cut any corners. We want to make sure everything done is done fairly and just definitely keeping us involved and just making sure that we know what the progression. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Commissioner Hess.
Thank you. First of all, I want to give some gratitudes to our city, to the people who work for the city, our city laborers. Right now, currently, a lot of them are involved in the leaf pickup throughout the city. It's something that we often take for granted, but these folks show up every day and make our city better. I want to thank all of the people who are working through this in the city clerk's office to make sure that this election is free and fair and all votes are counted. I'm proud to volunteer tomorrow at Bernhard Center, and I look forward to a positive election experience here in Kalamazoo. I want to give gratitude to Ms. Wendy Fields for her leadership in Kalamazoo and for championing the NAACP blood drive that's going to be happening this Thursday at the Douglas Center in the afternoon. Please join me in giving for the greater good. There is a severe blood shortage, and we'd love to see you there. One of our callers, Miss Tina McClinton, called in again, and I want to address this because she does deserve a reply. Southtown is a district between the Vine and Edison neighborhood. It's a district that was brought about years ago just to describe an area, not a neighborhood. It is not an official neighborhood. However, there is a process that one can, or our group can do to create a neighborhood. That process has been communicated to Ms. McClinton and the folks in the Southtown District to be able to do. And I want to give a shout out to Ms. Jay Slaby. Jay is our new neighborhood activator in the city, and she is able and willing to help anyone that wants to create a district or a neighborhood through that process. I personally have been asking questions of our chief city engineer, James Baker, about the flooding in this neighborhood, and it is on a floodplain, and they are working diligently to make sure that they work on the issues in that neighborhood. It's not cheap and it's not easy, and I don't know if it's doable, but they know about it, and they will be in touch with you, Ms. McClinton. And then finally, for the folks that came from Isaac, thank you. Thank you for being our educators. Thank you for being my educator. That is, an educator is someone that draws forth my greater self. So thank you. I appreciate this opportunity. As Chris talked about with holding the city manager accountable for enforcing the housing ordinance, absolutely. I will say that in the time the housing ordinance has been in existence here, our city attorney's office has investigated or sent to the Michigan Department of Civil Rights 44 cases. So they are happening, and the ordinance is in effect. In terms of the city attorney, personally, without having been on the attorney search committee, I was not aware of where we were with the process. And I will definitely make sure that we ask that city attorney their thoughts on this most pressing matter. I also, and somebody asked about housing solutions, and absolutely, housing solutions are definitely a part of this city plan. Moving forward, Assistant City Manager Kick and her team with community planning, economic development are that's at the forefront of their minds. I did answer yes to the white supremacy training, absolutely. I think that's a part of the education that we all should have. And as Commissioner Praedel said, I don't know if we can hire one officer that's going to be able to address all of the issues that we face. I think it's very complex. I'm willing to sit in meetings and make sure that we address these in the best way possible, from city officials to county officials to regional and state officials that are working on all of these things. It's definitely necessary that we get to the bottom of this and that we find out what's going on in our city and make sure that all our people have an opportunity at health. That said, one of the commenters asked if we could have dialogue. That's not the purpose of public comment. We do hear you. We do hear you. And the reason we ask you to sign in is so that we have your information to follow up with you. If it's something that a city department can follow up, they will follow up. But if it's something that we feel called to follow up with you, we will. So please, if you're a public commenter, leave us your name and where we can get back to you. Our emails are also available on the website and online, and we also do accept and work with you via email. So that's what I have to say. Please go vote. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Commissioner Hess. Vice Mayor Cooney.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I want to echo Commissioner Praedel's remarks, and I say that we are so fortunate to have a city clerk who has such great integrity and such great competence. And I have full confidence that we will have a free and fair election tomorrow. Since over the past month, the Northside Ministerial Alliance has had their breakfast, the NAACP has had their dinner, and Isaac has had their annual meeting, and all three were great successes. And I want to thank the members of these organizations for continually reminding us that racism is real and it tears apart the lives of people in our community. And I want to thank you for putting on the agenda specific ways in which we can combat this. There is no greater work for us than the work of justice. And the work of justice says that every person should have the fullness of life that they were entitled to. Earlier in the meeting, Jennifer Hayman said, there is so little we can do alone, but so much we can do together. I want to tell you that you have willing partners on this dais who want to work with you to create a national model here in Kalamazoo. And that will be the measure of our success. Not whether we do more for those who have an abundance, but whether we do enough for those who don't have enough.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Cooney. First of all, I just appreciate everyone's comments and input this evening on the commission, my colleagues. Appreciate working with everybody here. I'll be repeating some things. Godspeed, Clerk Borling. You and your team have a big lift tomorrow. I know you're going to have a ton of absentee ballots to count, and I know that's going to be a big challenge. I don't know what the timing is going to look like on that. I know that we had, luckily, we have Kristen, who's able to fill in with us here tonight from IT, because the rest of the IT team is back there making sure 54 laptops are loaded, updated, and ready to go. So that's happening in the room right behind us here. Important and foundational work of democracy resting on your shoulders and your team tomorrow. So we support you, Scott. Thank you. Amen. It is the case with all going on that sometimes some things are overshadowed, and I do think it's important to recognize that Veterans Day is this week on Friday. There are many individuals who are veterans who work here at the City of Kalamazoo in our Public Safety Department. I'm glad to hear the flags were in good shape. I've gotten complaints about that. I don't know if other commissioners hear about that, but that's often our Department of Public Safety folks who swing by, or maybe it's Parks and Recs, and make sure that our flag is good shape down there. So that's happening on Friday in that park. Just talking a little bit about community, and I want to wrap a few things together in this, and one of the pieces is fathers. And one of the fathers who is an icon in this community, who has lived here basically his adult life, been very, very involved, still involved to this day, and very involved in the lives of his children, is Mr. Charles Parker. And once again, I had the opportunity to take part in a trunk or treat event that he organizes on Crom every year. It was a beautiful Halloween for anyone who was out. I'm sure you were, Chris. And maybe you too, Commissioner Decker. Unbelievable attendance. And all his daughters were over there helping out. And I lost count after probably about 500 young people and families walked past the tailgate of my truck where I was passing things out until they ran out. Family-oriented event, lots of families there. And I would say just a good time, a good, safe time was had by all, with a neighborhood feeling about it. So what are other things that happen out of being a dad and having values and being involved? Well, who knows? Maybe one of your daughters might become a judge here in Kalamazoo. And I was honored to attend a ceremony at Hillside Middle School. In the gym there, which I have to say, I had mixed experiences in that gym, but Judge Parker LaGrone had great experiences there. I think her uncle was a coach. She was very involved in sports. She wanted to have this event where she was official swearing in. Family members, judges from around the state showed up, and talk about homegrown talent. There you go. So I just want to say also thank you, Charles Parker, for being there, for encouraging, for supporting, and I would say providing guidance and strong suggestions at certain times as well, which I have heard about. And maybe in the moment, they weren't fully appreciated. Later, you recognize their wisdom. So thank you for that. I do want to thank everyone who's involved in making this community be a better place, including Isaac, and I was struck by something that actually has been part of our process here for addressing gun violence. And it was something that is sometimes seems ironic to me, but as a matter of fact, Jen Hemos brought it up again tonight when she said that every person she talked to had their own distinct idea about the absolute way to solve the problem. And relative to her quote, which was repeated by the vice mayor here, is that we may have somewhat different versions of how to get somewhere, but there's a great deal of overlap, and the one fact that is absolutely true is that although we may determine between one approach or another, and which will be more successful, we can tell you for a fact that we know that if we don't work together, we will not be successful. That we know. And I appreciate that we get to do that here in the dais, and I am fully supportive of continued conversations about the best ways to solve our challenges here in Kalamazoo. I am only here in this seat because I care deeply about Kalamazoo being a safe, equitable, and prosperous and healthy community for all. I love you, Kalamazoo. We're adjourned.